You know, despite the title, this ran at 163 minutes, so it seems it had plenty of time to spare. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about a release from back in October, No Time to Die. Before we begin, let me know in the comments what your thoughts on this movie were, if you already saw it or if you were planning on seeing it, and make sure to hit that thumbs up button if you like these reviews, as it helps me out immensely by getting my content out there. And if you're new here, I hope you consider hitting that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with reviews of new releases, older films, hidden gems, and so much more on a near daily basis. But let's jump right into it and let's talk about No Time to Die. This sees James Bond, once again played by Daniel Craig, having left active service. His peace is short-lived when his old friend Felix Leiter, played by Jeffrey Wright, turns up asking for help, leading Bond onto the trail of a mysterious villain armed with dangerous new technology. Cary Fukunaga takes over to direct from Sam Mendes, who helmed the last two installments, and we all know the story with this one, as we were weeks away from the film's release in 2020, before it was pushed back repeatedly due to the pandemic. And despite some talks about it possibly being sold to a streaming service, MGM pushed through to ensure it had a theatrical release. It's also the final film with Daniel Craig as Bond, and it's interesting to note that while he doesn't play Bond the most amount of times, as both Sean Connery and Roger Moore have more films under their belt than him, Craig's technically played Bond the longest, with all 5 of his films being released over a 15-year period, just beating out Roger Moore's 14-year run, though mainly due to the year-long delay for Craig. Now, while several films were delayed extensively because everything that's happened over the last year and a half, this one was always the one to move first, and it got to a point people weren't sure this was truly going to release. But it finally saw the light of day, and I gotta say, it was certainly worth the wait. This is a fitting end to Craig's run as Bond, and it's one that's bittersweet. Most Bond actors don't really get a proper send-off. They just stop playing the character. The last film for each actor just felt like another standard entry in the Bond series. But considering with Casino Royale, they tried making each of these films a lot more closely linked, we actually get a proper conclusion to this 5-film arc, and it's Bond going out on a high note. Now, I wouldn't say this is the best Bond yet, but it was very entertaining. As usual, Daniel Craig is solid as always. This moves away from the quippy nature of Spectre, and it goes back to something darker, so he doesn't get as many chances here to lean into that sense of humor we know he's capable of. But he's still as charming as ever, and this sees him revisiting storylines from Casino Royale, as we see how he still hasn't gotten over Vesper Lynd's death. And part of the film is him learning to move on, which becomes something of an overarching theme. But Léa Seydoux, as Madeline Swan, returning from Spectre, is also another major standout here, as she gets considerably much more to do this time around, and that's saying something as she got a lot to do in Spectre. Not only does she try helping Bond deal with the unresolved trauma of Vesper's death, but she also has ties with the film's villain Safin, played by Rami Malik. And her ties to both Bond and Safin play a big part in tying everything together, also playing into the themes of confronting one's past. So while she was cool to see in Spectre, she's absolutely fantastic here, as she both serves as the film's emotional core while still playing a larger role in the action. And it's worth noting that we once again get a lot of really solid action scenes here, and they're played nicely for a wide range of emotions. The opening scene where we see a flashback to a young Madeline is absolutely chilling. There's a scene of Bond on a mission in Cuba that's exciting but also kind of played for laughs, and there are sequences involving this technology called nanobots that, when activated, feel like something out of a horror movie. While Fukunaga is not primarily known as an action director, he's very good at fusing different genres to bring out a certain emotional intensity, like if you watch his TV work in True Detective or Maniac, and that's on display here in terms of staging action. He hits all the right notes during these sequences, keeping us emotionally invested while providing us with a number of riveting fight scenes, and I was very impressed. I hope he considers coming back to direct another Bond film. We also see the return of all the usual players in Bond's supporting cast. Naomi Harris is great as Moneypenny, Ben Wishaw's charming as Q, Ralph Fiennes is solid as M, Jeffrey Wright's enjoyable as Felix, who is especially a welcome sight after being absent in Skyfall and Spectre. Though now, because this shows us Bond in retirement, again since this was a plot point in Skyfall as well, and the agency's moved on from him, there's not much room this time around for the fun dynamics among everyone as we saw in Spectre. Now, there are some, but it's more focused on individuals individual moments. Those said individual moments that we get between Bond and each member of the supporting cast is solid, and they would be fun, and we also get some major additions to this roster. The big one being Lashana Lynch as the new 007 named Nomi. Now, for one thing, Lashana Lynch is an excellent actress. She made for some of the heart in Captain Marvel. I'm looking forward to whatever project she has coming up, and she's a major highlight in the supporting cast here. Now, since this involves Bond coming back, this does lead to some light tension as he doesn't get the 007 title back, as she's become the main point person, which he kinda doesn't take so well. So it leads to some of the film's more humorous moments as we see some slight bickering between her and Bond over who's supposed to get briefed over a mission, who's the true 007, and all that. And I thought she was a lot of fun on her own, while also making for a great foil for Bond. I don't know if they're going to retain any of the cast members from this run of Bond films in the next run, like they brought back Judi Dench from the Pierce Brosnan movies. They could be going for a clean slate, but if they choose to revisit some of these versions of these characters, I wouldn't mind seeing a spin-off focused on Nomi, who, it's worth noting, also got several moments to shine during the action scenes. The other big highlight for me in the supporting cast is Ana de Armas as an agent named Paloma. Now, something that people were a bit confused on is she's only in one long sequence, which is the aforementioned Cuba sequence. She parts ways with Bond after, so she's not a big part of the film. But her brief time on screen was fun. Not only is she absolutely crucial to moving the rest of the plot forward, but they give her a solid dynamic with Bond, where Bond attempts to flirt with her and she brushes him off, or she'll make some innocent remarks that get a laugh, and she was great. It's a shame we actually didn't get to see more of her, but she makes quite the impact. And again, she'd be another character that would be a lot of fun to see in her own spin-off film. We also have to briefly talk about the opening song, which is also called No Time to Die by Billie Eilish, which I liked. I wasn't blown away by it. I still think that Skyfall and You Know My Name were my two favorites of the themes, but this was solid. It had a very subdued feel to it that gave this haunting vibe, which set the stage nicely for the rest of the film. So while it wasn't one of my favorites, it wasn't bad overall. Now, while I liked this film as a whole and was mostly entertained by it, I did have some criticisms, and it was in two major areas. One is the length. Of all the Daniel Craig movies, and actually of all the James Bond movies period, this one is the longest. 163 minutes. That's really unnecessary. I said this in my Spectre review, but these Bond movies, I feel at least, do not need to be 2.5 hours long. In Casino Royale, it was fine, and I know Quantum of Solace was pretty short, so that's a non-issue. But the rest of these films definitely stretch the runtime out longer than they need to be. Like I said in the Spectre video, I know these are meant to be big event films, and this in particular is supposed to tie everything together from the previous movies, and for the most part they succeed, but that middle section definitely feels a little bloated. I think once Bond's brought back into the fold, there are several instances of characters moving to a few different locations and trying to get some information that probably could have been tightened a bit. I really don't think we need these films to be that long just for the sake of it. Not every entry in every big franchise needs to be that long. I know some people welcome it, but it just does not work for me. The other big thing though that did not work for me is Rami Malek as the villain. Not gonna lie, this was easily the worst part of this movie as far as I'm concerned. Now, I like Rami Malek as a performer, and he works with what he's given here, but his characterization is incredibly weak. They try having him go for this feel where he can be quiet and eccentric, but also menacing at the same time, but they never do anything truly unique with this character, so I never once felt the emotional stakes of any of his scenes, at least not for anything his character did. I mean, I cared what was going to happen because I was invested in Bond, Swan, and everyone else, so I still found myself engaged during these sequences. But this character didn't do much that I'd consider memorable, nor did he make much of an impact for me. And since they kept him quiet for a lot of the movie, it's not like he had much of a personality to expand upon. There was no real depth to him, and as much as I like Rami Malek, I found this character to be incredibly disappointing, especially for the final villain of this run of films. And one last thing I found distracting, it didn't quite make a lot of sense why they went with this actor in particular as the villain, mainly due to the fact that Safin has a connection to Swan as a kid, yet during these flashback sequences, he already looks the way he does in the present day, and then however many years go by, presumably around 20 years or so, he looks exactly the same, even though he and Léa Seydoux are very close in age, and you can kind of tell. It's not like they went with an older actor and de-aged him for the opening scene, or at the very least tried to make Rami Malek look older in the present day sequences, if they were really that gung-ho with the casting. I'm not trying to pick on the guy, and I know it's not unheard of to have actors play characters a lot older than their actual age in live action films, and it can be pulled off, but it didn't seem like there was even an attempt at trying to make that distinction. And as cool as the opening scene was, It provided a distracting detail for the rest of the movie that I just couldn't get out of my head. No Time to Die is a fantastic end to Daniel Craig's run as Bond. It's action-packed, it's emotional, and it's bittersweet. While it did have some issues due to its bloated length and its extremely underwhelming villain, there's still plenty to appreciate between the cast, the set pieces, and the strong emotional core it provides among a number of characters. It's a wonderful swan song for Craig, who will have some big shoes to fill. No Time to Die gets an 8 out of 10. So, I just finished up my review series on the rest of Craig's run, and now that I've reviewed all 5 movies, stay tuned, as up next I'll have my way overdue ranking of Craig's entire run. But in the meantime, let me know, did you see No Time to Die, or are you planning to see it, and what were your thoughts? Did you find this to be a fitting end to Craig's run? Do you have someone in mind to play Bond next? Let me know in the comments below so we can discuss. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it, and for more movie reviews and film discussion, please make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Thanks for watching everyone, and keep having fun with film.